Hey, so on Saturday I went and saw Dark Phoenix with a friend. I don't know that this is going to be a review because I don't really have the focus and I haven't thought about it enough to structure it like a review, but I thought I'd just sort of have a ramble about my day on Saturday, seeing the movie and other stuff. So, I mean, with the movie, we enjoyed the movie, and I think one of the reasons for that is that we're not invested in the X-Men universe. When I've been online and seen snippets of complaints about it, I didn't look at too many before I went to the movie, but afterwards I've had a look through like some Facebook comments that people were leaving about it and all that. And I think the reason a lot of people didn't enjoy it is because they have an idea of what the X-Men universe should be like, and they know what the comic books were like, and they know what her personality is supposed to be, and how characters are supposed to be and all that. And so because they've got a set idea of how things should go, they don't like the things that the movie has changed. Whereas for someone like me, I mean, I watched the first three X-Men movies, and you know, this one's sort of like a parallel to that third movie, although they've made a lot of changes. And then I saw the Wolverine origin one, I saw, I think maybe the first one where they're all young again, and I think the last one I saw before this one was maybe Apocalypse with the Egypt dude, and that was only because I was on a plane and didn't really have many options to watch things. So, yeah, and I never really read the comics. I think there was a cartoon series about X-Men a long time ago that I watched a little bit of, but yeah, I never really got invested in the story. So no expectations. And then with my friend, oh my god, she's adorable. I mean, we have completely opposite fashion kind of ways. So I was there like all in black, the whole metal goth whatever image, and she's sort of more classy pink. I mean, she loves pink, but not in a immature kind of way. Like, she was dressed quite nicely. Not corporate, what would I call that? I don't know, just more mature than me. So, you know, walking through the city, you've got me in black, her in pink, and we're like the complete mismatch. But we can talk for hours. I mean, after the movie, we went to Cha Time and then eventually migrated over to Nando's and just stayed there until the place was about to close. So, talked for a very long time. We look like opposites, but we get on really well, and it's really fun, like, taking photos. I won't put any photos up, though, because I don't know, I haven't had a chance to ask her about privacy and all that. But if you just imagine lots of black, lots of pink, you basically get us. We look like opposites, but we get on so well. Anyway. So her, after the movie, you know, when we're waiting to go to the bathroom, because there's always queues, I made a comment. So I'm going to try not to give any kinds of spoilers just in case people haven't seen it, don't know anything. But I made a comment about the movie because there's a type of character that I didn't realize was in the X-Men universe. And she said, oh, I didn't expect to enjoy X-Men. And I was like, oh, haven't you watched it? And she said, yeah, actually, to be honest, like, she's watched a little bit a long time ago, probably less than me though, and she said, actually, I just sort of said yes to the movie because the name sounded cool. So she's adorable. So, but you can tell, like, we didn't really have a whole lot of background or a whole lot of loyalty to an existing idea of what X-Men should be. And I think that's why we enjoyed it, because you just sort of, like, take it for the movie it is, like, at face value without worrying about history. So, I think there are some things I was like, oh, I wonder what happened to cause this change, because there's some characters that I didn't expect, that they're in different places that I didn't expect them to be. But otherwise, like, you couldn't get the gist of what things are like. They do enough exposition in not too in-your-face ways so that you, even if you haven't really kept up with it, you can kind of understand what's going on. Like, for example, why Magneto's in a different place to the X-Men and all that. Because, you know, that's stuff that I don't think I watched in previous movies or whatever. And then with other characters that I remember, like, in the first three movies being on a different side, and then they're on this other side, and blah, 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 blah. You just kind of forget about whatever you thought the characters were meant to be, and you just go with it as if they're new characters. I think that's how it's fine for us. Whereas, yeah, I can understand with if you're really into the fandom, because, like, for example, with Jekyll and Hyde, I've read the book, and I have some strong opinions of it. So when people go and make movies and adaptations that miss some of the key details, yeah, I get angry. So, or I get annoyed because some of them are really bad. So I can kind of see how someone who's really invested in the existing X-Men mythology might not be happy with this based on their comments. Like, there's some stuff that they did change, but hey, I don't know. Anyway, so, but I have seen the third movie of the original trilogy, which has some differences to this, and one of the things that I guess is different is the way they've treated what she's going through. I mean, so if you've seen the trailers, like, I'm pretty sure I'm not spoiling anything, is like, she's a psychic and, you know, kind of an average-ish psychic, although I guess at some point she's gotten better at what she's doing. But then something dramatic happens, and then all of a sudden her powers get heaps amplified, and she can't, like, handle it, can't control it kind of thing, and then has issues with, you know, instead of doing good things, ends up doing bad things. Yeah, and the way that they've handled that is quite different in this movie. So, yeah. That didn't bother me, it just didn't give me a reaction that I was expecting I might experience. So here's the part where I guess I will get into spoilers, so if you want to tune out, basically, I enjoyed the movie, and I think it's because I had no preconceptions to how X-Men should be. So if you're kind of, like, oblivious to the X-Men universe, or don't care when they change things, you probably think it's a fine movie, because, you know, like, there's some good action scenes, the story was good enough, as long as you don't think too much about it. I have a problem with overthinking stories, especially after the fact, but at the time I was enjoying it. Handful of things I'm now like, oh, that maybe was a bit odd. But yeah, overall, enjoyed it. My friend who doesn't really know much about X-Men enjoyed it. I'm sorry the lighting today is a bit off, but like, it's been raining all day, what can you do? Yeah. Action things happening. I didn't feel like you had to watch previous X-Men to really understand what's going on, so that's good. Anyway, oh, I'm a bit off. I didn't sleep too well. Blah blah blah. That's my attempt at a review. I feel like there are other things I should say, but I'm kind of just winging this. I'm waiting for a package to arrive, so kind of preoccupied with that. Didn't sleep well, and yeah, let's move on to where I will probably let spoilers slip out. But so some of you are interested in how all of this goes with the Destroyer stuff, because I have a habit of watching media that triggers me to be a little bit crazy. And you would think that this one, with a sort of a split personality theme, would be one of those kinds of movies where I would come out of it feeling a little bit like, woo. But that's not what happened this time. I'm sorry if I just lost a bunch of people who have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm going to explain that at some point, but I've just been doing some research on like different theories that can explain what I'm trying to communicate, and I haven't quite finished that, so yeah. Also, if people have randomly stumbled onto this seeing Dark Phoenix in the title and they think I'm a proper reviewer and I'm not going to go off into weird personal tangents, I'm sorry. This is weird personal tangents that you kind of need some background information. I know I'm rambling, I'm sorry, okay, focus. With the third movie of the original, like, X-Men movies, that's where they had the Phoenix character first come out. And in that one, I haven't watched it in a long time, but what I remember of it is Jean is like her own character, and the Phoenix is kind of treated as an extra character that is, and they're like stuck in the same head and they're struggling and all that. So I do remember having a reaction to that in terms of, you know, my split personality obsessions and all that. Whereas in this movie, what they've done with the character is, instead of them being like separate people, it's just that she kind of has like a little meltdown, and so if I was trying to imagine what experience she's having, instead of fighting against what feels like another person in her head, she's kind of just getting increasingly emotional and unable to control that spiral, and then she snaps, and that's when shit goes flying. Generally, people go flying and destruction happens. So it's more of a meltdown situation rather than a split personality situation, if that makes sense. So, Yeah, and like one of the things that in hindsight I thought was a bit weird is when she meets I'm sure if you've seen in the characters the lady with like the silver hair and all that, and this lady sort of tells her like this is what you can use your powers for, and this is what we've been why we've been focusing on it and why we found you and all that kind of stuff. And from that moment she seems to get control of the powers but is kind of confused about what she's supposed to be doing and a little bit paranoid and all that. And I'm just like, so all you needed was a random person you've never met to explain to you an idea of what's going on, and you couldn't just listen to what your friends were trying to help you with? I don't know. It was a little bit odd to me. So at the time I didn't have any problem with that, but in hindsight I was like, that did seem like a bit of a leap. But anyway, it made for some fun scenes when she does start listening to the silver-haired lady. But then what... Yeah, no, I just didn't get the whole split personality vibe from this one. Now, I don't know what X-Men is meant to be like, so I don't know how they treat it, like in the original comics or whatever. But, yeah. And then with the resolution of the movie, okay, so, you know, if you remember the third movie of the originals, I don't remember what sets her off, but she goes on this, like, crazy destruction, like everything's disintegrating around her, and the only person who can get close is Wolverine because he can heal really fast and he's got a super strong metal skeleton and whatever, and she comes out of it and is like, oh my god, you have to stop me kind of thing, and he's like, okay, stab, and then she dies. And that's how they resolve that. In this one though, so the spoiler, they've had this epic train battle where like mutants on both camps, so like the X-Men camp and the Magneto camp, I don't know if they have a name, they're both trying to defend this train against the bad guys in the movie, and Jean is unconscious, and the silver-haired lady's trying to attack Jean, but it has to go through the entire train, so I feel like it's a little bit set up for a video game. Funny how movies today always seem like they're set up with video games in mind, but anyway, so yeah, and then what's his name, Professor X? He's trying to wake her up and so on, and then she has some epiphany about family, and then, no conflict between her and her Phoenix powers. She just starts, like, fucking shit up, but without, like, protecting the people who are on her side, but fucking shit up like crazy, and then it's, like, god powers, and then, kills everyone, and then with the main bad guy flies into the sky and explodes into a sort of phoenix thing that's still hovering above whatever. Okay, ruined the ending for you, and explained it really badly. So it's like, instead of her dying, she turns into a actual phoenix firebird in the sky and makes everything better, instead of, although there's so much destruction around, and also after all that, you know, like the X-Men in this movie, the mutants and all that had finally just been accepted because they'd saved a bunch of people in space. Wow, I'm so bad at explaining. This is what happens when I don't plan movies. I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna do a video today about the thing that happened in the weekend. But yeah, no, so they just got accepted by humanity as being more like superheroes rather than a problem. And then now she's, first of all, caused all the problems in the movie. And then in solving them, there's still this broken train and a whole lot of broken stuff everywhere. So yeah, I can imagine after this movie, the whole mutants are gonna be fucked again. But yeah, anyway, so it was a different sort of ending, and there wasn't any sort of self-conflict at the end. In the third movie, it was like, you know, oh my god, I'm so horrible, you have to kill me kind of thing. In this movie, it's more like, she gets over her emotional trauma, paranoia, whatever, and is like, I'm going to protect my family kind of thing. And so, yeah, there are some things, so, like with... Okay, focus. With the split personality stuff, it didn't really have an effect on me because it was more like someone having anger issues rather than split personality issues and feeling like someone else is in there. So there's that. The other thing, like, if it was me 5 years ago watching, the one thing that maybe would have gotten a reaction from me in terms of Destroyer World stuff, is just, like, the god power and ridiculous amount of destruction kind of thing. But I think maybe I've grown out of that, or maybe I'm just a little bit numb at the moment. I'm not sure. But that in the past would have gotten a reaction from me, and it didn't this time. So that's an interesting thing for those of you wanting updates. I'm sorry, my updates today is really vague. It's just, I really need to figure out how to explain what I'm on about. But I've just stumbled onto a whole bunch of Wikipedia articles about different theories of split mind. I mean, like, you know, there's the whole dissociative identity disorder thing, which, like, chuck that out the window because it's not useful. But then I found all this stuff about, like, ego state therapy and some other things, and haven't really finished reading them. And then there's also the spiritual side of things where people, like, calling spirits or creating spirits, or I don't know. I haven't quite finished reading that side of things either. Anyway, I had one of those nights, and it got a little bit, oh, I watched the Jekyll and Hyde movie with Doug Gray Scott? I have no idea how to pronounce his name. Yeah, and that's maybe my favorite depiction of the Jekyll and Hyde thing, and so, I got a little bit crazy, and I ended up writing a poem, but I was struggling to stay within one voice, so it sounds a little bit, psycho. But, you know, hey, it's poem number 571, so I've got another 29, I think, before I can compile them into another book. So, yeah, if you're interested in my poetry, eventually you can read all my, the crazy stuff that goes on in my head when I write poetry in inverted commas, because actually it's just, like, off the top of my head bullshit. And yeah, I was just struggling to work out. I was a bit confused, because I was sort of like, mishmash of ideas and not really committing to any particular side of what goes on in my head. So yeah, and then I spent a lot of time sort of just sitting there not really doing anything, because I was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna have to not be so vague if I'm gonna explain what's going on, so I need to just, like, hurry up and finish reading this stuff, figure out what I want to say and how I want to say it. I'm trying not to be too much of a weirdo. So this has been a really bad video about going to see Dark Phoenix, hanging out with my friend who's really cool, I like her, and then trying to relate how I used to react to movies like this, and then me now. No, this movie is not really strong enough in the elements that would usually make me a nut job. I had to go back to the Jekyll and Hyde thing because this video is going to be heaps weird for anyone watching, and I feel like I should delete it, but no, I gotta stop being a chicken, don't I? I don't know, I just didn't really think of exactly how I wanted to explain stuff and what I want to say, so I'm being a nut job. And what time is it? I've got to actually wait for this package and pay a bit more attention, so maybe I should just go. But I hope for those of you who do know what I'm talking about, it gives you some idea of how I'm reacting to certain things like this at the moment. And I will just stop here and be a total nut job and hope that not too many randoms see this, because they'll have no fucking idea what I'm going on about, and I'm just gonna look like, I've got this real problem with insecurity at the moment with the shit that's going on in my head. I've always had this sort of insecurity, but I used to be able to talk about stuff more on YouTube, and I think I'm sort of struggling to get there. I think it's easier when I'm doing live stream to get some of this stuff out of my head, because I don't have time to think about it. I don't have time to think about, oh shit, I'm gonna have to delete this later. And I don't know, I think because those of you who are like my hardcore, following me for ages, people who know what I'm on about, I think maybe because I feel like you guys are more accepting, it's easier for me to talk about some of that stuff live. Yeah, speaking of live, actually this week, my Thursday and Friday aren't as free as I was hoping, so I'm considering maybe live streaming from, oh shit, what time is it going to be? Maybe from like 11 in the morning on Thursday, if I can wake up early enough. So I'm thinking about that at the moment. I'm not going to confirm it just yet, but we'll try, because otherwise, and it'll probably only go for like an hour and a half-ish. I could maybe squash it out to 2 hours, but yeah, I don't have the house to myself for that long on Thursday, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm gonna go. I feel like I have this pressure to keep talking, because, you know, whenever they say how to be a good YouTuber, they're like, don't have long silences, cut them out and whatever, but I can't be bothered. And I've already fucked up this video by being vague and insecure, and also not knowing how to articulate what I'm on about. So yeah, this video really lost a lot of steam once I got into that side of stuff. Yeah, let's go and just... bye. Stop the video.